What if the entire world paused for a single heartbeat, waiting for news that no one dared to imagine? The halls of Buckingham Palace, usually echoing with calm decorum, were alive with chaos. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. Whispers ricocheted through the corridors, urgent messages flashed across secure lines, and the air was thick with a tension so dense it seemed almost tangible. Prince William, the future king of one of the oldest and most scrutinized monarchies in the world, lay in a hospital bed in critical condition. The official statements from palace aides were carefully worded, measured, and sterile. Yet behind those words were tears, prayers, and a palpable sense of fear. King Charles, stoic but visibly shaken, sat silently in a room adjacent to the intensive care unit, his hands clasped tightly, knuckles white. Beside him, Kate Middleton fought to maintain composure, her eyes betraying the anxiety and helplessness that gripped her heart. Princess Anne, ever composed in public, could not hide the tremor in her voice when speaking to staff. The phrase "we're losing him" hung in the air like a storm cloud ready to break, and for the first time in recent history, the British royal family's strength felt fragile, almost human. News of the incident had traveled faster than anyone could have anticipated. Within minutes, journalists, social media influencers, and citizens alike were glued to every feed, waiting for confirmation or clarity. Speculation ran rampant, ranging from sudden illness to an accident that no one outside the palace walls could confirm. In the absence of solid information, rumor filled the void, a mixture of fear and fascination feeding the public's insatiable appetite for royal drama. People shared tweets, posted videos of Buckingham Palace, and anxiously scanned news sites for updates. A nation, and indeed a world, held its collective breath. It had begun earlier that day. Prince William had been scheduled for a routine medical checkup, one that was meant to reassure both him and the public about his well-being. What happened next was anything but routine. Medical professionals, acting quickly and with precision, rushed him into emergency care. Witnesses reported the appearance of multiple ambulances and a convoy of security vehicles, their lights flashing and sirens piercing the typically quiet streets of central London. Onlookers described an atmosphere charged with tension, a sense that something momentous and terrifying had occurred. Within minutes, the palace was on high alert, top aides and advisors summoned to assess the situation, draft official statements, and prepare for an unprecedented public relations challenge. Inside the hospital, the scene was stark and sobering. Doctors and nurses moved with urgent coordination, every second a testament to their expertise and the critical nature of the situation. Monitors beeped incessantly, machines tracked vital signs, and teams of specialists consulted each other in hushed, precise tones. For those who had worked in the palace for years, the sight of Prince William so vulnerable was almost unbearable. Staff who had seen royalty in every conceivable circumstance now faced the unimaginable. A future king fighting for his life, stripped of ceremonial dignity, lying in a sterile room where the usual protocols of pageantry were meaningless. The reality was raw, intense, and profoundly human. King Charles, normally measured and deliberate, could not conceal the depth of his concern. Reports from palace insiders described him pacing the hospital waiting area, muttering prayers under his breath, and occasionally collapsing into a chair, overwhelmed by the situation. His eyes, usually calculating and controlled, were red and glassy. He called for updates every few minutes, unable to sit quietly while his eldest son struggled for survival. Kate Middleton, ever protective and graceful, hovered nearby. Friends and aides later recounted that she spoke softly to the doctors, asking questions about procedures, possible outcomes, and the tiniest details of her husband's care. Yet despite her inquiries, her hands shook, betraying the anxiety she desperately tried to mask. Princess Anne, the queen of composure, was described as quietly observing, her arms crossed, her jaw tight, a steel-like resolve clashing with the evident fear in her eyes. Even the most stoic members of the royal household were affected, the crisis exposing vulnerabilities typically hidden from public view. Outside the hospital, the world reacted with a mixture of panic, curiosity, and genuine concern. Citizens gathered in small groups, some holding candles, others murmuring prayers or silently hoping for a miracle. Social media was ablaze. Hashtags related to Prince William and the royal family trended globally within minutes, drawing attention from nations that revered the monarchy as a symbol of stability and continuity. Television networks interrupted programming, switching to live coverage with anchors speaking in solemn tones. Each update, no matter how small, was scrutinized, analyzed, and dissected by experts and amateur commentators alike. The collective anxiety was palpable, a modern-day reflection of the centuries-old fascination with royalty that had been both a blessing and a curse for the Windsor family. Amidst the chaos, rumors began to swirl. Some claimed it was a sudden medical emergency related to a pre-existing condition, while others whispered about a mysterious accident. Palace insiders remained tight-lipped, bound by both protocol and a desire to protect the family from further distress. Yet the human instinct to speculate could not be contained. Journalists and commentators offered theories ranging from the plausible to the sensational, often with little basis beyond conjecture. The palace, meanwhile, worked tirelessly behind the scenes to manage information, issue official statements, and maintain a semblance of order in the face of mounting public pressure. Every decision, every word released to the press, carried weighty consequences, potentially affecting public perception, media coverage, and even international relations. The emotional toll on the family was evident in every gesture and interaction. In private moments, King Charles was seen holding Kate's hand, seeking reassurance, though both were aware that words offered little comfort. Princess Anne, though rarely outwardly expressive, was reported to have wiped tears from her eyes when stepping away from the hospital room. Staff who had worked closely with the royal family described a scene of quiet, intense grief interspersed with urgent action, a juxtaposition of human emotion and the relentless demands of duty. It was a reminder that, beneath the centuries of protocol, tradition, and public scrutiny, these were people first, parents, siblings, and partners confronting an unimaginable crisis. In the midst of this turmoil, questions began to emerge. What exactly had happened to Prince William? How serious was his condition? Would he survive? And, perhaps most crucially for the monarchy, what implications could this crisis have on the future of the royal family and the nation at large? Experts in monarchy and public relations weighed in, analyzing every detail of the unfolding drama. Some highlighted the extraordinary resilience the family had shown in previous crises, while others warned of the emotional, political, and cultural ramifications of a potential tragedy. The uncertainty was nearly unbearable, yet it underscored the deep connection between the public and the institution of the monarchy, a bond that had persisted for generations, now tested in the most profound of ways. As hours passed, the tension escalated. Every report from the hospital carried with it the weight of hope and fear. The medical team's careful, precise language offered reassurance, but nothing could entirely erase the anxiety etched on the faces of those waiting outside the room. King Charles, Kate Middleton, and Princess Anne each struggled to maintain composure while grappling with the reality that their lives, and the lives of millions who watched with bated breath, had been suddenly thrown into uncertainty. The atmosphere was electric, every movement, every sound amplified by the magnitude of the moment. This crisis was more than a medical emergency. It was a test of resilience, faith, and the human spirit. The eyes of the world were fixed on a hospital bed in London, where a man who had spent his life preparing to lead, to serve, and to carry the weight of centuries of tradition now fought simply to survive. The story was unfolding in real time, each passing minute laden with tension, each update a potential turning point. And for those who loved him, who had built their lives around the certainty of his presence, the uncertainty was almost unbearable. From the outside, it was easy to focus on the spectacle. Flashing lights, breaking news, trending hashtags. But within the walls of the hospital, it was far more intimate, far more human. Doctors and nurses, trained to remain calm under pressure, moved with urgency, their expertise counterbalancing the fear in the room. Family members clung to small gestures, holding hands, whispered prayers, silent tears, each act a testament to love, hope, and vulnerability. In that fragile space between life and uncertainty, the true weight of the moment settled heavily on all who were present. And yet, even in the midst of despair, there was a glimmer of resilience. The royal family, accustomed to public scrutiny and the burden of expectation, had faced crises before. But nothing quite prepared them or the world for this. The next few hours, the next updates, and the next decisions would define not just Prince William's fate, but the emotional and cultural landscape of a nation holding its breath. The story that would unfold in the coming days promised to be intense, revealing, and emotionally charged, offering a window into the human side of one of the most enduring institutions in history. Here, in the heart of the hospital, time seemed suspended. Every heartbeat mattered, every breath was precious, and every glance between family members carried a depth of emotion that words could scarcely capture. The public, watching anxiously from afar, could only imagine the fear, the hope, and the silent prayers echoing through those stark hospital corridors. And as the first critical updates began to trickle out, the world braced itself for what could become a defining moment in the story of the modern British monarchy. The question remained, would Prince William pull through? Would the future king survive this crisis? And how would the royal family navigate the uncertainty that now engulfed them? The answers were not yet clear, but one thing was certain. The events unfolding at that hospital would be remembered for generations. A dramatic chapter in the life of a prince, a family, and a nation bound together by history, tradition, and the raw vulnerability of the human heart. The hours ahead promised tension, heartbreak, and possibly a glimmer of hope. This was not just news. It was history in motion, unfolding in real time, and every eye in the world was watching, waiting, and hoping. The world never sleeps, but that morning felt different. The usual buzz of news outlets, social media updates, and celebrity chatter was suddenly dwarfed by a single, urgent story. Prince William had been rushed to the hospital in critical condition. Initial reports were sparse and heavily guarded, a mixture of official statements and veiled hints from anonymous insiders. The news hit like a shockwave, reverberating across continents. Within minutes, televisions across the United Kingdom and beyond switched to emergency coverage, anchors speaking in hushed, urgent tones. Social media exploded. Hashtags related to Prince William's condition were trending globally within a quarter of an hour, each update sparking speculation, worry, and fear. It started with a simple alert on the BBC News ticker, the kind that usually only flashes for political crises or natural disasters. It read, "Prince William hospitalized, condition critical." For those accustomed to the rituals of royal life, it was shocking. Prince William, the Duke of Cambridge, heir to the throne, and a symbol of continuity for the monarchy, had always been seen as robust, reliable, and in control. The mere suggestion that he could be critically ill sent an electric jolt through the public consciousness. Journalists immediately scrambled to verify the story. Some tried contacting palace spokespeople, only to receive carefully worded statements confirming that Prince William was receiving medical care but offering no details on the cause. Reporters outside the hospital, keenly aware of the significance, described frantic scenes. Emergency vehicles arriving in rapid succession, security personnel directing onlookers away, and an atmosphere thick with tension and urgency. Eyewitnesses described a convoy of black SUVs and ambulances with flashing lights, an unmistakable signal that the situation was grave. The normally calm streets of central London were transformed into a zone of anxiety, punctuated by the blaring sirens of medical vehicles and the murmur of concerned crowds. As news spread online, speculation ran rampant. Some social media users cited unnamed sources claiming it was a sudden medical emergency, while others floated theories ranging from a fainting episode to a hidden accident during a private outing. Media outlets, striving to maintain accuracy while also responding to public demand, balanced between reporting confirmed facts and acknowledging the swirling rumors. The result was a charged mix of fear, curiosity, and speculation that dominated every news cycle. Inside the palace, the response was immediate. Advisors and senior staff were summoned, emergency protocols activated, and communication channels secured. King Charles was briefed in real time, the gravity of the situation reflected in the tense lines of his face and the unusual pallor in his eyes. Kate Middleton, protective and resolute, received updates with a mix of composure and concern, her normally calm demeanor masking the worry gnawing at her. Princess and, often the most stoic of the senior royals, showed rare signs of visible anxiety. Staff members, many who had served the family for decades, described a scene of quiet urgency, a mixture of controlled chaos and emotional tension, as the palace attempted to manage both the immediate medical crisis and the public fallout. Meanwhile, outside the palace and hospital, the world was reacting in real time. People gathered in small clusters near Buckingham Palace and local news offices, holding phones, cameras, and notebooks, capturing every detail they could. Some silently prayed, others speculated aloud, and many simply stood in stunned silence. Television networks went live, showing footage of the palace gates and the surrounding streets, anchors describing the unfolding drama with increasing urgency. Online, trending topics filled with prayers, well wishes, and theories about the cause of Prince William's sudden hospitalization. It became apparent that this was not merely a personal crisis but a national and international event. The role of modern communication amplified the situation. In an era of instant information, news travels faster than ever before, and the story of Prince William's hospitalization spread globally within minutes. Tweets, posts, and messages poured in from citizens, celebrities, and political figures alike, expressing shock, concern, and solidarity. Television networks cut into regular programming, and streaming services paused scheduled shows to deliver live coverage. The intensity of global attention created an environment where the palace had to carefully manage the narrative while respecting the privacy and dignity of the royal family. For journalists, the challenge was immense. Confirming facts without official statements was nearly impossible, and every new detail risked misinterpretation or exaggeration. In the early hours, conflicting reports emerged. Some claimed he had been taken in for a scheduled procedure, while others insisted on a sudden, unexplained medical emergency. Newsrooms worked tirelessly to separate speculation from verified information, reaching out to multiple sources and piecing together the puzzle of what had transpired. The tension inside newsrooms mirrored that of the palace itself, a shared anxiety amplified by the global stakes. Even as the world reacted, the palace remained focused on its internal crisis management. Security measures were heightened, with controlled access to the hospital and palace grounds. Advisors coordinated with medical teams to receive timely updates and prepare for various scenarios. Meanwhile, aides carefully drafted statements to provide just enough information to inform the public without compromising the family's privacy or the hospital's medical protocols. Every message, every public update, carried immense weight, capable of influencing public perception, stabilizing fear, or inadvertently fueling panic. Amidst the controlled chaos, eyewitness accounts continued to emerge. Reporters described the sight of black limousines entering the hospital courtyard, their occupants moving swiftly but with visible concern. Onlookers noticed figures in formal attire, including security personnel and palace aides, carrying a sense of urgency and focus that suggested the severity of the situation. Ambulance crews moved with precision, and medical teams appeared to coordinate seamlessly, reflecting the high level of readiness for emergencies involving high-profile individuals. In addition to physical evidence, digital media amplified the story. Live streams from nearby streets, drone footage, and real-time updates created an unprecedented level of transparency and immediacy. Social media users shared photographs of the hospital entrance, videos of emergency vehicles, and speculative commentary on every movement. The viral nature of these posts increased public anxiety, prompting official sources to respond with carefully constructed statements. Even small details, such as the appearance of the royal staff or the timing of vehicle movements, were scrutinized and analyzed in real time by commentators and enthusiasts worldwide. The early hours also revealed a stark contrast between public curiosity and private distress. While millions watched from afar, the royal family experienced the crisis intimately. Every update from doctors, every whispered detail about vital signs or interventions, carried emotional weight. Staff described a quiet but intense atmosphere, where the usual ceremonial protocol gave way to the raw urgency of protecting life. Family members hovered near the medical teams, sometimes speaking in hushed tones, other times sitting in stunned silence. It was a scene of human vulnerability, set against the backdrop of centuries of tradition, privilege, and public expectation. By the end of the first day, it became clear that the breaking news of Prince William's hospitalization was more than just a headline. It was a global moment. The world had witnessed the fragility of even the most prominent figures, and the royal family had been laid bare in a way few could have anticipated. The interplay between media frenzy, public concern, and the palace's private crisis management created a narrative rich with tension, emotion, and high stakes. The stage was set for a story that would unfold over hours, days, and weeks, each update adding layers of complexity and urgency. Questions hung in the air. What had caused this sudden hospitalization? How grave was his condition? Would the monarchy itself be affected if the worst were to happen? These questions fueled speculation, analysis, and emotional responses from every corner of the globe. For those within the palace walls, the answers mattered deeply. For those observing from afar, the story was a gripping drama that combined human vulnerability with historical consequence. The breaking news of Prince William's critical condition was the catalyst for a series of events that would expose the emotional depths of the royal family, the intensity of media scrutiny, and the global fascination with monarchy. From the first flashing headlines to the anxious gathering of onlookers and the meticulous coordination of palace staff, the world had been drawn into a story that was at once personal, political, and historic. And as the hours stretched on, the public remained riveted, waiting for updates that would reveal the next chapter in this unfolding crisis. The hospital, a modern facility renowned for handling critical emergencies, had been thrown into a rare state of high alert. Normally a place of calm efficiency, the arrival of Prince William transformed it into a hive of controlled urgency. Security personnel blocked off entrances, redirecting ordinary patients and visitors, while a convoy of black SUVs and ambulances arrived in rapid succession. Staff immediately recognized the gravity of the situation. While they were trained to handle emergencies involving high-profile patients, there was an undeniable tension in the air, an awareness that this patient was not just any individual but the heir to the British throne. Inside the intensive care unit, the scene was stark and meticulously organized. Monitors blinked rhythmically, tracking heart rate, blood pressure, and oxygen levels with relentless precision. Medical staff moved with a practiced efficiency, yet beneath their professional demeanor, there was an undercurrent of urgency, amplified by the knowledge of the world watching from afar. Nurses coordinated seamlessly with doctors, passing information quickly, anticipating every need. Equipment was checked and double-checked, medications carefully prepared, and procedures outlined with exacting detail. Each second mattered, and the staff knew the stakes extended far beyond the usual scope of a hospital emergency. Prince William lay in a hospital bed, pale and fragile, a sharp contrast to the public image of vitality and strength he often projected. The stark white sheets, the sterile smell of antiseptics, and the mechanical hum of machines created a clinical environment that magnified the vulnerability of even the most powerful figures. He was surrounded by a team of specialists, each focused on stabilizing his condition, monitoring for any signs of deterioration, and preparing for interventions should the situation worsen. Every subtle change in his vitals was observed with intense scrutiny, a small rise or fall in heart rate capable of triggering immediate action. King Charles had arrived shortly after the news broke, his normally composed demeanor strained by visible anxiety. He paced in a room adjacent to the ICU, hands clasped tightly, occasionally gripping the armrest of a chair as he tried to process the information. Advisors and aides hovered discreetly, offering updates and reassurance, yet even their carefully measured words could not mask the fear that had taken hold. The king's eyes, red-rimmed from exhaustion and concern, followed every movement of the medical staff, a reflection of both paternal love and the weight of potential national consequence. Kate Middleton was a constant presence by Prince William's side. Friends later described her as a pillar of quiet determination, alternating between softly speaking to the medical team and holding William's hand. Her face, usually composed and poised, revealed flashes of raw emotion. At times she would lean close, whispering words that could only be heard by her husband and herself, perhaps offering reassurance, perhaps drawing strength from the familiar presence of the man she loved. Her staff and aides maintained a discreet distance, allowing her the private space to express her concern while simultaneously coordinating with hospital officials to ensure William received every available resource. Princess Anne, often the embodiment of stoicism and composure, was also present, her demeanor carefully controlled yet revealing a rare vulnerability. Those close to her later recounted subtle details, the tightening of her jaw, the deep breaths she drew as she assessed the situation, the occasional wiping away of tears when she thought no one was watching. For Anne, this was not merely a medical crisis. It was a familial ordeal, one that challenged her composed exterior and forced her to confront her emotions in an intensely personal way. The medical team, aware of both the patient's high-profile status and the intense public scrutiny, operated with precision and focus. Doctors consulted in hushed tones, discussing treatment options, potential complications, and next steps. Nurses adjusted equipment, checked lines, and ensured every detail was accounted for. Even the smallest error could have far-reaching consequences, not only medically but politically and socially, given the global attention the situation commanded. The staff's professionalism was matched only by the gravity of the moment, and each action was deliberate, precise, and critically important. Throughout the day, updates from the medical team were conveyed in measured, cautious language. Every phrase was weighed carefully to balance transparency with discretion, providing reassurance without inciting undue panic. Occasionally, an update would be delivered to the waiting family, prompting emotional responses. A sigh of relief at a stable reading, a brief clasp of hands, or a silent prayer. These moments were intimate, human, and profoundly moving, revealing the depth of emotion experienced by those closest to Prince William. Security within the hospital was unprecedented. Officers patrolled corridors, ensuring that access was restricted and that privacy was maintained. Only essential personnel were allowed near the ICU, and all media personnel were kept at a distance. Helicopters were rumored to hover nearby, ready for rapid transport if necessary. The level of coordination was staggering, reflecting the centuries of planning and protocol designed to protect the royal family while simultaneously managing public perception. Yet despite this careful orchestration, the emotional tension within the hospital walls was palpable. The presence of global media outside created a surreal juxtaposition. While inside, life and death decisions were made in hushed, tense moments, outside, the world clamored for information. Drones hovered, cameras clicked, and reporters strained to capture any glimpse or update. Social media exploded with posts and messages, often speculative, sometimes inaccurate, but always urgent. The palace and hospital staff faced the dual challenge of providing necessary information without compromising the medical team's focus or the patient's privacy. As the day progressed, minor developments, heart rate fluctuations, adjustments in medication, subtle changes in vital signs, were reported to the family. Each update elicited intense emotional responses. King Charles occasionally sank into a chair, overwhelmed by the gravity of the situation, while Kate clasped William's hand tightly, whispering words of comfort and reassurance. Princess Anne remained composed outwardly, though those watching could detect the tension in her posture, the rapidity of her breathing, and the occasional glimmer of tears in her eyes. By evening, the intensity of the situation had not diminished. The ICU remained a hub of focused activity, the medical team working tirelessly to stabilize Prince William. Every monitor, every beep, and every movement was scrutinized, each small detail potentially significant. Family members continued to hover nearby, their presence both a source of emotional support for William and a reminder of the human stakes behind the global headlines. This scene of vulnerability was unprecedented in modern royal history. Prince William, usually a figure of strength, duty, and composure, was now reliant on the expertise of medical professionals and the unwavering support of his family. The juxtaposition of private fear and public fascination created a narrative that was both intensely personal and globally resonant. Every heartbeat mattered, every breath was observed, and every gesture, both by medical staff and family, carried profound significance. Questions lingered as the night deepened. How did this critical situation arise? Would the medical team's efforts be sufficient? Could Prince William, a man accustomed to resilience and responsibility, pull through this life-threatening ordeal? The hospital, a place of clinical efficiency, had become a crucible of human emotion, blending expertise, fear, hope, and the relentless pressure of global attention into a single, charged environment. The hours at the hospital demonstrated not only the fragility of human life but also the extraordinary measures required when the life at stake is that of a future monarch. The careful choreography of medical care, security protocols, and emotional support combined to form a narrative of urgency, vulnerability, and dedication. As the first night passed, family and staff alike understood the gravity of the situation. Each moment could tip the balance between recovery and tragedy, and the world outside waited with bated breath for the next update. The moment King Charles received the news, the world around him seemed to tilt on its axis. A routine day in Buckingham Palace transformed into a scene of tension, grief, and urgent decision-making. The normally composed monarch, whose demeanor had been shaped by decades of public scrutiny and royal responsibility, was suddenly confronted with a reality that no protocol could fully prepare him for. His eldest son, the future of the monarchy, lay in critical condition, fighting for his life. The phrase "we're losing him," whispered by a close aide, reverberated in his mind, punctuating the severity of the moment. Charles had always been a man of measured responses, but in those first hours, even his famously steady exterior betrayed hints of vulnerability. He paced the waiting room adjacent to the intensive care unit, hands clasped tightly, occasionally running them through his hair in frustration and fear. The familiar weight of the crown, usually balanced by the certainty of lineage and duty, now felt heavier than ever, compounded by the immediate personal fear for his son's survival. Advisors attempted to maintain calm, offering updates and reassurances, but even they were aware that the king's concern went beyond formalities. It was deeply, undeniably human. Throughout the morning, Charles alternated between pacing and sitting, absorbing updates from medical staff. Each report, every fluctuation in Prince William's vital signs, every decision about interventions, was processed with meticulous attention. Yet each piece of information also carried a potential emotional blow. He absorbed the medical jargon, the carefully worded reassurances, but underneath it all, the fear remained. Sources close to the king later described him as a man caught between his role as sovereign and as a father, grappling with emotions that transcended politics and protocol. The king's despair was compounded by the knowledge of how the public would respond. He was acutely aware that millions were watching, analyzing, and waiting for reassurance. Every facial expression, every gesture, would be scrutinized by media outlets and citizens alike. This duality, managing personal grief while fulfilling the unrelenting expectations of a global audience, added layers of pressure that few could comprehend. Staff who observed him noted subtle signs: a tightened jaw, a deep sigh, and the occasional, almost imperceptible shake of his hands. These were moments when the veneer of royalty cracked, revealing the raw, human emotion underneath. Charles's advisors had prepared him for crises before, but nothing quite mirrored this scenario. While there had been political upheavals and public controversies, none carried the weight of potential familial loss. He listened intently to updates from physicians, asking precise questions about medications, interventions, and possible outcomes. Yet each answer, while clinically reassuring, did little to diminish the emotional storm raging within him. Friends and aides later recounted how he would occasionally retreat to a quiet corner, silently grappling with the uncertainty, muttering prayers under his breath, a private ritual away from the scrutiny of staff and the media. Kate Middleton's presence, though often calm and supportive, served as both a comfort and a mirror to his distress. The king occasionally reached out to her, holding her hand for a brief moment, drawing strength from the shared fear and concern. Their interactions, quiet and understated, reflected the profound gravity of the situation. Two adults, parents and partners, confronting the possible loss of a son and future monarch. Each glance, each whispered word, was laden with emotion, the kind of moment that the public rarely, if ever, witnessed. By midday, the strain on Charles was evident. He alternated between listening to updates, pacing the room, and speaking in hushed tones to aides, discussing everything from potential media statements to contingency plans should the situation worsen. Every decision required a delicate balance, providing enough transparency to manage public concern, while ensuring that private moments of crisis remained shielded from scrutiny. For Charles, this was a dance between his role as king and as a father, each requiring attention yet each pulling in different directions. Princess Anne, standing nearby, offered a form of silent support. Her composure served as a stabilizing presence, yet even she could not conceal the impact of the situation. Observers noted subtle gestures, a tightening of her hands, a fleeting glance of worry, and a measured exhale that suggested the gravity she felt but did not vocalize. For Charles, having Anne nearby was both a source of strength and a reminder of the shared familial stake in this crisis. Throughout the day, every phone call and message to the king carried significance. Advisors, officials, and close family members kept him informed of developments, while simultaneously monitoring the public and media response. The weight of leadership pressed heavily on him, the dual responsibilities of guiding a nation and supporting a son in critical condition converging into a singular, intense pressure. Even seasoned observers described the day as one of the most emotionally taxing in Charles's life, a moment where the boundaries between duty and personal anguish blurred. Medical updates were delivered with caution. Charles would listen intently, nodding at some points, interjecting with questions at others. Yet the anxiety beneath his composed exterior was clear. Each minor change in William's vitals was felt acutely, as if Charles himself bore the fluctuations within him. He alternated between silent reflection, whispered prayers, and moments of quiet dialogue with aides and medical staff. The tension in the room was amplified by the knowledge that the world outside, from London to New York to Sydney, was watching and waiting. By evening, the psychological toll on the king had become apparent. Staff reported that he had barely eaten, spending the day oscillating between pacing, observing monitors, and speaking softly to those around him. The usual rhythms of royal life, the ceremonial duties, the public appearances, and the formal responsibilities, had vanished, replaced by the immediacy of human concern and the uncertainty of life itself. King Charles, a figure often associated with stoic leadership, was now a father in a state of acute vulnerability. Throughout the crisis, Charles's despair was tempered by resilience. Despite the fear, he remained engaged, focused on updates, and involved in decisions related to William's care and public communications. He recognized that, in addition to the personal tragedy at hand, there were symbolic and political considerations tied to the well-being of his heir. The duality of his role as monarch and father created a pressure cooker of emotion and responsibility, one that few could fully comprehend. Every movement of the day reinforced the fragility of human life, even for those born into privilege and power. Observers noted the profound contrast. A king accustomed to commanding nations, now pacing quietly, waiting for updates on a hospital monitor. His mind oscillated between hope and fear, between parental love and the duty to maintain composure. For Charles, this was an unparalleled ordeal, one that would test his endurance, his resilience, and his capacity to navigate the intersection of personal grief and public expectation. As night fell, Charles remained by the hospital, watching over his son, listening intently to updates, and quietly processing the unfolding events. The day had been long, emotionally draining, and fraught with uncertainty. Yet within this crucible of fear and concern, there was a steadfast determination to remain present for his son, to support his family, and to face whatever consequences the coming hours might bring. This was a man confronting the vulnerability of life in the most personal and immediate way, reminding the world that beneath the veneer of royalty, the human heart beats with the same fear, hope, and love that any parent would feel. Kate Middleton's day began like any other, filled with carefully curated appearances, royal duties, and family responsibilities. Yet, by mid-morning, that familiar rhythm was shattered. The news arrived with the weight of a storm. Prince William, her husband, lay in critical condition, and she needed to be by his side immediately. The initial shock left her momentarily paralyzed, a rare moment of vulnerability for a woman often praised for poise and composure. Within moments, aides and security personnel mobilized, arranging transport, coordinating communications, and preparing for the sudden intrusion of global attention into what had become a deeply personal crisis. The drive to the hospital was tense and silent. Kate sat in the back of a black limousine, gripping the armrest tightly, eyes focused on the window yet seeing nothing outside. Her mind raced through every scenario, every possible outcome. Friends and close aides later recounted that she whispered prayers under her breath, her lips moving in silent hope, a desperate attempt to summon calm amidst the chaos. Security personnel flanked the vehicle, aware of both the high-profile nature of the passenger and the urgency of the situation, ensuring a swift and unobstructed passage to the hospital. Upon arrival, the scene intensified her anxiety. A cluster of medical staff moved quickly, coordinating emergency procedures, while security ensured the perimeter remained secure. Cameras flashed outside, drones hovered overhead, and the world waited anxiously for updates. Yet within the hospital walls, Kate's focus was singular: her husband. She was escorted past the bustling hallways, moving with quiet determination, her every step a mixture of fear, resolve, and love. When Kate first saw William lying in the hospital bed, the reality hit with full force. Monitors beeped rhythmically, machines hummed, and medical staff worked with meticulous care. The hours in the hospital became a test of endurance. Kate remained by William's side, alternating between holding his hand, speaking softly, and quietly observing the medical team at work. Friends later described her presence as both soothing and determined, a delicate balance of emotional expression and composure. Though the monitors and beeping machines provided technical updates, it was her intimate knowledge of her husband's demeanor, habits, and personality that guided her responses. She noticed small signs: a twitch, a change in breathing, a flicker of eye movement, and these subtle cues became anchors amidst the uncertainty. Kate's aides worked tirelessly to support her, coordinating communications, managing logistics, and ensuring that she could focus entirely on William. At times, she would retreat momentarily to speak quietly with a trusted aide, seeking reassurance, clarifying medical updates, or simply drawing a breath. Despite the immense stress, she maintained a quiet strength, a combination of emotional resilience and maternal instinct, ready to respond to every twist and turn in William's condition. As the day progressed, Kate's emotional journey unfolded in layers. Moments of quiet reflection alternated with bursts of concern, whispered prayers, and tears that she quickly wiped away. Every report from the medical team, whether reassuring or alarming, triggered a visceral response, the kind that only deep love and fear can provoke. Friends described seeing her exhale in relief at a stable vital sign, her hands gripping William's with renewed determination, and her eyes scanning the medical monitors with a sharp, vigilant focus. Throughout this ordeal, Kate also had to navigate the awareness of public scrutiny. While her immediate concern was William, she understood that cameras, reporters, and social media were capturing every movement, analyzing every gesture. Yet she did not allow the pressure of observation to compromise her focus. Every action was deliberate, measured, yet emotionally authentic. She embodied both strength and vulnerability, a figure of love caught in the eye of a storm that was part personal, part global spectacle. Even during the brief pauses, When medical staff conferred or monitors displayed stability, Kate remained attentive. She adjusted William's blanket, whispered encouragements, and gently touched his hand. These small gestures, intimate and human, reflected the depth of her emotional investment and the gravity of the situation. Aides later recounted that she rarely looked away, rarely spoke to anyone else, entirely consumed by the immediate crisis and her desire to be present for her husband. As the day turned into evening, the intensity of her ordeal did not diminish. Kate received updates from physicians and palace aides, processed them with remarkable clarity, and responded with both decisiveness and tenderness. She remained acutely aware of the dual realities: her role as a wife in profound distress and her position as a public figure whose composure influenced not only those around her, but also the perception of the monarchy on a global scale. Balancing these forces demanded extraordinary emotional resilience, a challenge she met with quiet determination. During moments of private reflection, Kate occasionally allowed herself to step back, her hands resting lightly on her lap, her gaze distant yet focused. In these rare instances, she processed the fear, grief, and uncertainty that accompanied the situation. The medical terminology, hospital environment, and continuous updates required focus, but the emotional reality of a loved one fighting for life was unavoidable. She experienced a raw, human vulnerability, a side of the royal family that the public rarely glimpsed. The interplay between action and emotion defined her day. She was both caretaker and observer, emotionally invested yet strategically aware. Each interaction with medical staff, each decision about staying close or stepping back, was informed by deep knowledge of William, intuition about his needs, and awareness of her own emotional limits. She maintained an almost constant presence at his side, her hand never far from his, her voice a soft anchor amidst the mechanical sounds of the hospital. As night approached, Kate's ordeal was far from over. Every moment carried weight. Every update could shift the trajectory of the evening. She remained vigilant, tender, and profoundly human, embodying the intense love and fear that comes with witnessing a life you hold dear hanging in the balance. Even in the face of exhaustion, she stayed focused, a presence of strength and hope amidst the uncertainty. Princess, and, long admired for her composure and disciplined demeanor, arrived at the hospital with a sense of urgency that contrasted sharply with her usual measured presence. Known for her ability to navigate both ceremonial duties and private responsibilities with a steady hand, and was confronted with a situation that tested even her remarkable resilience. The news that her nephew, Prince William, was in critical condition hit her with the force of reality, unmediated by protocol or expectation. For the first time in many public observers' memory, Princess Anne's calm exterior showed subtle signs of vulnerability. Upon entering the hospital, Anne was immediately briefed by aides and medical personnel, while her sister-in-law, Kate, remained focused on William and took on a different role, that of an observer, a coordinator, and a source of composed support for the family. Her keen sense of organization and her ability to maintain clarity in high-pressure situations became essential. She quietly assessed the layout of the ICU, the movement of medical staff, and the flow of information, ensuring that her presence would be helpful without disrupting the delicate operations surrounding her nephew's care. Despite her composed exterior, close aides noticed the strain etched into Anne's features. Her jaw was tight, her hands occasionally clenching and unclenching as she absorbed updates from doctors and staff. Every beep from the monitors, every step of a nurse or physician, was watched with intense scrutiny. The history of her family's engagement in public crises informed her approach, but this personal dimension, the potential loss of a beloved nephew, added a layer of urgency and emotional intensity unlike any she had navigated before, and moved strategically between observing and participating. She offered guidance on logistical matters, ensuring that security personnel and aides coordinated effectively with hospital staff. She also provided emotional support, particularly to those who were visibly distressed, helping them navigate the intensity of the day. Anne's ability to maintain focus under pressure allowed the family to function within the crisis without being overwhelmed, creating a stabilizing presence that balanced the chaos of the moment. Her attention to detail was precise. She noted minor fluctuations in monitors, subtle shifts in William's posture, and small but telling responses to interventions. These observations informed her interactions with medical staff, allowing her to ask pertinent questions, seek clarifications, and confirm the accuracy of updates delivered to the family. In many ways, and became an intermediary between the high-stress environment of the ICU and the family waiting nearby, translating clinical information into actionable insight and emotional reassurance. The emotional depth of the situation was undeniable. While and rarely displayed overt emotion, aides and staff reported fleeting moments when the severity of the situation was apparent. A deep exhale after a tense update, a slight quiver in her hands while adjusting a medical chart, or a lingering gaze toward William conveyed the human vulnerability beneath her composed exterior. These moments, though brief, revealed the profound personal impact of seeing a family member in critical condition. Anne's presence also served as a point of connection with King Charles and Kate Middleton. She provided subtle emotional support, offering words of calm when tension escalated, guiding decisions with her characteristic clarity, and ensuring that communication flowed smoothly among family members. Her interventions were measured, never intrusive, yet deeply impactful, offering reassurance that helped temper fear and maintain a semblance of control amid an inherently unpredictable situation. As the day progressed, Anne remained alert and engaged. She monitored medical updates, coordinated with palace staff, and remained attentive to the needs of her nephew and the broader family. Her ability to compartmentalize, balancing personal fear with a commitment to functional action, proved invaluable. While her sister-in-law remained focused on direct emotional support for William, Anne's steadying influence provided a complementary layer of stability, ensuring that the family operated effectively in a high-stakes, emotionally charged environment, and also engaged with medical personnel in ways that were both respectful and proactive. She asked thoughtful questions, confirmed procedural steps, and remained informed without overstepping boundaries. This balance of attentiveness and discretion allowed her to support the family while respecting the hospital's protocols and the intense focus required for William's care. Every interaction was measured, every inquiry purposeful, reinforcing the role of a stabilizing presence during the crisis. Throughout the ordeal, Anne's mental resilience was evident. She maintained a mental map of the hospital layout, staff responsibilities, and procedural priorities, allowing her to anticipate needs and support decision-making effectively. This analytical approach was paired with moments of genuine human concern, particularly when observing the interactions between Kate and William. While Kate's focus was intimate and personal, Anne's focus was structural, ensuring that the emotional intensity surrounding her nephew's condition did not overwhelm those tasked with his care. As night approached, Anne's commitment remained unwavering. She stayed close, offering silent support, observing subtle changes, and ready to intervene if necessary. Her calm, collected presence contrasted with the raw emotional expressions of others, yet it carried its own quiet intensity. Staff later noted that her focus never wavered. She balanced concern, vigilance, and emotional awareness with a discipline that allowed her to act as a pillar of strength for the family. Anne's role extended beyond the immediate medical situation. She coordinated with palace communications staff, ensuring that information released to the public was measured, accurate, and sensitive to the family's needs. While the crisis centered on William's health, Anne's foresight and organizational skill helped manage the broader implications, creating a framework that allowed the family to navigate both personal fear and public scrutiny. In the quiet moments between updates, and occasionally allowed herself a brief private reflection. These fleeting pauses, often spent standing near a window or quietly observing the ICU monitors, revealed a mix of fear, hope, and determination. While her public persona emphasized composure and strength, these moments hinted at the profound personal impact of the situation, illustrating a side of the princess rarely glimpsed outside of extraordinary circumstances. Princess Anne's approach to the crisis demonstrated a careful balance between emotional engagement and practical action. She offered reassurance without dramatizing, provided support without overstepping, and maintained a strategic awareness that allowed her to anticipate challenges before they arose. In doing so, she became an essential part of the family's ability to endure the intensity of the day, a quiet anchor amid the storm of fear and uncertainty. By the time the first night had fallen, Anne's role was clear. She had been both observer and participant, guardian and emotional support, a steady hand in a moment defined by unpredictability. Her presence exemplified the duality of the royal family during crisis. Deeply human in their vulnerability, yet capable of extraordinary composure and resilience. The day had tested every facet of her character, her patience, her focus, her emotional intelligence, and she had risen to the occasion, providing the family with a lifeline of calm, clarity, and unwavering support. As news of Prince William's critical condition spread, the reaction from the public was immediate, intense, and deeply emotional. In cities across the United Kingdom, people stopped what they were doing to process the shocking announcement. Streets near Buckingham Palace and key hospitals were flooded with concerned citizens, many holding candles, flowers, or handwritten notes expressing their hopes and prayers. Some silently stood in vigil, while others spoke aloud their concern and disbelief. The normally bustling urban environment took on a solemn tone, a reflection of collective anxiety and empathy for the royal family in crisis. Social media amplified this reaction exponentially. Within minutes of the first official statements, hashtags related to Prince William and his condition began trending globally. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok were inundated with posts ranging from heartfelt prayers to speculative theories about the cause of his hospitalization. Some shared personal stories of family members in critical condition, drawing parallels to their own fears, while others expressed sheer panic, unable to process the severity of the news. Celebrities and influencers added their voices, posting messages of support, creating a viral wave of public attention that the palace could neither ignore nor fully control. The response was not limited to the United Kingdom. Across Europe, North America, Asia, and Australia, news outlets interrupted regular programming to cover the breaking story. Anchors spoke with solemnity, carefully balancing updates provided by the palace with expert commentary on potential medical implications. Live streams from near the hospital provided real-time footage of crowds, ambulances, and security personnel, while journalists analyzed every detail, speculating on the severity and potential outcomes. In a matter of hours, the story had become a global spectacle, capturing the attention of millions and highlighting the intense fascination the world holds for the British monarchy. The collective concern manifested in multiple ways. In London, impromptu vigils were organized near the palace gates. People held candles aloft, forming lines of light against the night sky. Many brought flowers, cards, or small tokens of hope, leaving them in carefully arranged memorials that reflected a communal desire to offer support. Some sang hymns or recited prayers, the quiet voices blending into a chorus of concern and solidarity. Observers noted that the scene resembled a moment of shared grief, a temporary suspension of daily life in the face of a crisis that resonated on a personal and national level. Online, the public response was equally fervent. Messages flooded social media feeds. Prayers, pleas for updates, and expressions of disbelief dominated timelines. Memes and commentary ranged from heartfelt to humorous, as people attempted to process fear and anxiety through familiar channels. While many posts reflected genuine concern, others propagated misinformation, rumors, or unverified theories. This digital amplification created both a sense of shared experience and an additional layer of chaos, complicating the palace's efforts to manage public perception and maintain accurate communication. Media outlets took the story seriously, with newspapers publishing special editions and online portals updating continuously. Headlines varied from cautious statements of fact to dramatic proclamations meant to capture attention. Prince William, hospitalized in critical condition, became a leading banner on countless websites, often accompanied by analysis, expert opinion, and historical context regarding royal medical emergencies. Television anchors provided continuous coverage, alternating between live footage of onlookers and interviews with royal commentators, medical experts, and historians, dissecting the implications of the event for both the family and the monarchy at large. Public reaction was further fueled by the intense curiosity surrounding the private lives of the royal family. People speculated not only about the medical condition itself, but also about how the family members were coping behind closed doors. Anecdotes from palace insiders, while rare and carefully vetted, provided glimpses into emotional responses, from King Charles's visible anxiety to Kate Middleton's unwavering support. Princess Anne's composed presence was interpreted as both reassuring and humanizing, offering the public a sense of the multifaceted ways the family was confronting the crisis. Globally, citizens engaged in collective speculation, reflecting both admiration for the family and genuine fear for William's well-being. In cities like New York, Sydney, and Paris, expats and royal enthusiasts gathered in small groups, holding discussions, praying, and following news updates with rapt attention. The worldwide reaction highlighted the unique cultural position of the British monarchy, an institution that, despite centuries of tradition, still evokes powerful emotional responses in a modern, globalized world. Experts weighed in to provide context for the intensity of the public's reaction. Sociologists and cultural historians explained that royal figures often serve as symbols of continuity, stability, and national identity. When one of these figures faces danger, it triggers collective anxiety that transcends personal connection. Media psychologists noted the role of social media in amplifying emotion, allowing instantaneous dissemination of information and speculation, while journalists underscored the global fascination with the balance between privacy and public life in royal narratives. Public vigils continued into the evening, reflecting the depth of concern and solidarity. Groups of people gathered, lighting candles and sharing stories, forming impromptu communities bound by empathy for the royal family. Observers noted the diversity of participants, young and old, locals and tourists, all united by the same urgent hope for William's recovery. Flowers, letters, and small personal items accumulated at the palace gates, a tangible manifestation of collective care and emotional investment. The digital sphere, however, was more chaotic. Live streams, viral videos, and instant updates provided the world with a sense of immediacy, yet they also contributed to confusion and heightened anxiety. Some posts misreported details or circulated unverified claims, while others attempted to provide reassurance, sharing images of hospital staff, official statements, or archival footage of William in public appearances. The palace faced the dual challenge of managing the accuracy of public information while respecting the private nature of the crisis, a task made increasingly difficult by the speed and reach of online communication. Amidst the chaos, genuine stories of empathy and solidarity emerged. Individuals shared messages of support from family members, friends, and strangers, illustrating the profound connection that citizens felt to William and the monarchy. Charity groups and local organizations offered support, suggesting prayers or symbolic gestures, reflecting a widespread desire to provide comfort, even if indirectly. For many, engaging in these acts was a way to process fear, express concern,